Hello, boys and girls. We are back on League Unlock, and it's been a bit of a break, bit of a hiatus when it comes to the player rankings for the LEC. But fear not, we did not forget about your jungle and support positions heading into 2020. And we're going to start with the junglers going 10-1. And Broxah is not in Europe, and he's not even in North America because of visa issues, and it sounds like he might not be playing Week 1 for Team Liquid. But with him out, that really puts pretty much every other jungler up a peg in Europe. He has been a top 3 jungler at worst. He has hardly ever been outside of the top 3, always top 2 since he's been around. But now everybody has an opportunity to show, can we be the new rival for Jankos? Because he had his heyday, got MVP in the summer split. But starting number 10, you have Shadow on Mad Lions and Razork in at number 9 for Misfits. Both of those guys are big question marks coming in. They've been good in their respective regional leagues, won some titles where they've been from, and Shadow from LoL Esports and Razork was on Vodafone Giants. Both teams very successful. How are they going to fit into their lineups? Still a big question mark. And almost half of the league in the LEC, 46%, did not play before 2019 in the LEC or the LCS, which is absolutely insane. Almost half of them have had less than a year-long career. There's so many rookies coming in, which makes it almost impossible to rank these guys. But God Gilius, who was the final announcement of anyone in the LEC or the LCS or the LCK for that matter, Schalke waiting an eternity to announce their starting jungler, but it is Gilius, and it's hard to put him really much higher than 8th because at times on Vitality, he looked rock solid. He was definitely a top half, an upper echelon jungler in Europe. But then there were games where you were just, what are you doing, Gilius? Where he looked very out of sorts, was getting completely outclassed. And the fact that he's been around for so long, you've got to start to think maybe this is the ceiling that he's going to reach. And he's still an LEC caliber jungler for sure. Even though when he went over to Turkey and was playing in the regional leagues, I think he was better than that. And he has absolutely worked his way and deserves a starting position. He has some of the best work ethic that you will find in the LEC, but still a little bit difficult to put him higher than number 8 on this list. And even somebody like Skeens, who's a spot ahead of him, he was more featured in that regional league with the Vitality B squad. He was really one of their best players. People wanted to see Saken get promoted alongside him, but Skeens, definitely one of the better up-and-coming junglers when it comes to these rookies. Kadril, he's somebody that we poo-poo on quite a bit, but he has been an important leader for XL, and you listen to him on the analyst desk, he is so smart when it comes to the game. If he retires anytime soon, which he shouldn't because he's like 20 years old, but he has a spot on that desk. Very cerebral player. Trick swaps over to SK, but he was fantastic on Schalke and one of the main reasons they finished top 3, so he deserves numero 5 on this list. Inspired might be climbing even higher than number 4 on this list when the season comes to an end. He is absolutely a future superstar jungler in Europe and self-made. The big change of the offseason, Broxah out, big shoes to fill for him on Fnatic, and yes, the summer split was not quite as hype as in spring when he got an all-pro nod. He was rookie of the split, but he was still one of the better junglers in Europe, and for him, I mean, you've got to look at this Fnatic roster compared to what he was working with on SK in summer, and you're absolutely foaming at the mouth. Just an upgrade in every single position. Incredibly aggressive laners, at least in Bwipo and Nemesis, has been much more aggressive in that mid lane. So he is got the pick of the litter for what lane to go and gank, and he's not just going to be behind across the map with his squad. So for him, he's the big question mark on Fnatic because he's the only change, but I think with such a solid roster around him, we're going to see much closer to that spring split form, and it's still, he only has 1 year under his belt. 2019 was his first time on the LEC stage, so expect some growth and development, and if there's any organization or team that does an incredibly fantastic job of grooming young talent, it is, of course, Fnatic. Just look at how many ex-Fnatic players are gone against the wind, gone into the wind on other teams, whether it's in Europe or North America. So have full confidence in them helping to grow him. And Mickey, as a head coach, he's been around a long time. He can help develop him as well. Self-made still not enough to go ahead of Xerxes, who is fresh off of a Worlds appearance where Splice actually put up a good, decent showing against SKT in a best-of-5. Xerxes showed that he can play at a world-class level. He was consistently right behind Broxah and Jankos throughout all of 2019. With Broxah out, Xerxes moves up a spot to that numero deuce spot, but nobody is dethroning Jankos as the king of the jungle in Europe, the defending MVP coming into spring. And there was times where Broxah out-jungled him in some of the 12 games that they played in summer, but overall it was always Jankos getting the better end of that rivalry, at least in 2019. And on the world stage, pretty much he was the most consistent player. Maybe in the group stage he didn't look great, but on the knockout rounds, he was fantastic against Damwon. He was great against SKT, and pretty much nobody was great against Fun Plus. So he showed up on the international stage. People thought he would be a front runner for the .A award at Worlds because he had an incredible amount of hype coming into that event. People had him, us included, had him pretty darn high on those World's Top 20 rankings coming into the event. And group stage, it looked a little shaky. Oh no, maybe he's not going to live up to the hype. But when those best-of-5s rolled around, he absolutely did. He smurfed on all of Europe, deserved that MVP award in summer, and he's going to have to be relied on heavily again in 2020 because G2 did the old flip-flop on that role swap with Perkz going back mid, Caps going into the bottom lane with Mickey. There's so many weird picks and incredibly aggressive play styles on this G2 roster. It was Jankos throughout all of summer that was the consistent force. You want me to play Braum? Sure. You want me to play Qiyana and carry the game? Absolutely. Run the early game through him on Elise or Gragas. He did it all for G2, and there is absolutely no reason that he should be falling out of #1 coming into the preseason, and we're still going to be talking about him being the best jungler in EU at the end of spring as well.